Hey Sky. Morning. Morning. Morning everyone. For those of you who are following us, I thought I'd just quickly check in, let you know some of the plans. For those of you who are not following us yet, I thought I'd let you know some of the plans. But anyway, so Jon Seagull, as she's still currently called, is now in Portishead with us. It's a beautiful, albeit pretty chilly day, but I thought I'd just sort of take this opportunity to sort of talk you guys through some of the plans that we have for this boat. So for those of you who don't know, this is a Moody 42. It's a Mark 1, and that actually is relevant to some of the improvements that we want to make. But yeah, 42 foot, sort of a hybrid deck saloon. People say it's a deck saloon. I don't think it is. It's not quite a pilot house. Yeah, so I'll talk you through some of it. But she's pretty solid. She handled the trip round from Aberystwyth round Ramsey Sound and West Wales. She handled that pretty well. It was extremely rough going, but she handled that real well. But we learned quite a lot on that trip. You know, a lot of the hatches leak. A lot of them are just a matter of like putting new seals on. But we won't worry about those just yet. Everything under the waterline is pretty okay. Some of the sea cocks needs a little bit of attention, but that's to be expected. But yeah, so first things first, that bimini, that's going to get replaced. So I'm going to put a radar arch on the back there with the spray hood somehow integrated into the front here, and then a sort of a canvas bimini, sort of a temporary structure, something that will be suitable, maybe not necessarily with solar panels on the bimini, but certainly solar panels on the solar arch. So the reason we're replacing this is that I'm 6'3", and I can't stand up in there. The previous owner was 5'10", and he also struggled to stand up, so it gives you an idea of just how low it is. So that's one of the key things that's going to be changed. We already have the parts for that. The other thing, major changes that I want to make, so this is a significant change that I want to make, is this access into the companionway here is extremely precarious. I think I mentioned this in the last video, that it's a bit dark down there, but that's pretty much a straight drop in a major seaway. It's pretty difficult. But if I come back into the cockpit, and if you imagine trying to go forward into the companionway from here, Moody unfortunately didn't think that one through. So you have to clamber over this winch, and if your main is over to starboard side, then that sheet's in the way, but you have to sort of clamber around here. Hopefully the boat doesn't pitch and roll too much, but it's a little bit sort of, you know, spider crawling over the top here. So what I want to do is I actually want to glass that over, I want to blank that off, and I want to move the companionway entrance actually to the coach roof here, where that hatch is and where the jib sheet is. So let me see if I can zoom out mid. There we go, that's a little bit better. So yeah, so I want to move it to sort of this area here. I want to open that up, and I want to have the companionway go directly down into the aft cabin, and I'll explain in a second what that's about. But yeah, so that's going to get changed. And then moving forward, if we actually go back down into the companionway, I'll do this forward without trying to fall on my face. Right. So we've brought some of the stuff on board already, but I think I mentioned we're pretty happy with the galley. You can see we're drying stuff out still from last weekend. Solar panels here. But so looking aft, so that's the entrance to the companionway. Comes down this fairly steep flight of stairs. So what I want to do is I want to open this area here and actually make the companionway come directly into this aft cabin. Some might think that's a little odd, and I guess in many ways it is. But the whole idea of it behind this aft cabin is it's going to get transformed entirely. So one of the things that was noticeable on passage was that water would, if we took spray over the deck, water would actually sort of enter into the companionway and end up in here. And also anybody that was entering into the saloon from from outside would bring all their sort of wet weather gear and everything, and so this area around here was completely sodden. It was permanently wet, and people were changing out of their wet weather gear over here. So so what I want to do is I want to transform this aft cabin actually into a wet room. So entrance would be a lot safer. It would be at a slightly gentler angle through here into this room. There'd be racks, etc., for foul weather gear over here. They'd still keep a heads for anybody who's on watch, and they can come in, use their heads back here. But then the idea with this sleeping area here is that would become sort of submarine style bunks, bar stretcher beds. So this whole thing will be transformed, but that's fairly major change. So look out for that. We're not sure if we can do that this season, but we'll certainly try. So that's a fairly major change. But the most urgent things that we need to look at is the engine, which is a Perkins Sabre underneath the floor. I'm not going to lift that up; those panels are heavy. So the engine needs a service. It ran without skipping a beat last weekend. It was ever so reliable. Heavy on fuel. It's an 85 horsepower. It's a 4-liter engine. But yeah, so that's going to get serviced. And then we'll have a look at what other changes we want to make. I've got some extra batteries that I want to put in here. There's a bank of 300 watt, 100 amp hour batteries at the bottom there. I think one of them's dead. So I've got 2 more, and so I want to increase the size of battery capacity that we've got there. But I've got those things already. We don't need funding for that. We just need funding for the electrics. So by and large, everything is fairly okay. There's a lot of redundant electrics on this boat, a lot, and so one of the key things I want to do now over the winter is I want to have the electrics tidied up, and then make sure that everything is easy to use. It's intuitive, certainly for me. I certainly need to know how to get around everything. And then for anybody else coming onto the boat, I can give them simple instructions on how to do things, how to work with things. But yeah, so that's a fairly big thing that needs to be done. So engine service and electrics. Like I said, this change to the companionway, that might wait for next season. Right, so coming outside, hopefully there's not too much of a breeze. So everything back here is fairly okay. That dinghy back there, that's going to get raffled off at some point. Keep an eye out for that. So the other thing that needs to be looked at, I think, with a relative sense of urgency, so could it go another season? Well, yes, it can go another season, but until something breaks. But this rigging, I had a really good look at the rigging, and it seems to be relatively solid. But there are areas where we're starting to see signs of corrosion. It is 20 years old. Let's see if I can get in there. So if you can see that, there's sort of corrosive spots in there. I've had a good pick at that. Nothing's loose, certainly not on the outside. Some of these, the center might be loose, but I think err on the side of caution, and we'll just have the rigging done. So that's probably going to be the biggest expense for the this guy. That's going to be some of the biggest expense for the for what we want to do now. I won't play with that. But yeah, so visually it looks like it can go another season or two, but I think I'd rather err on the side of caution since it is 20 years old, and it's probably been across the Atlantic. I can't remember when this boat actually did the arc, but I'd prefer just to replace the rigging. So yeah, so with the opening up of the companionway, so moving this companionway from here to there, that sheeped attachment point will obviously need to move, and so my intention is to move it onto the coach roof. Coach roof is strong enough. Let me come around the other side so there's not so much wind noise. So that attachment point will essentially just be completely eliminated. The hatch will be in this area here, and then I'm going to attach a sort of mid-boom A-frame sheet system. That's becoming increasingly popular by the looks of things, and I think it's a really good idea. It means that you can, for the most part, actually eliminate a vang or a kicking strap, and then also you don't need to run a preventer. So all round, it's a lot safer. It's obviously you have two blocks at the bottom, and so it requires a little bit more sort of fine tuning rather than just sort of a single line sheet in, sheet out. But overall, I think it is a safety improvement. But what it will allow us to do is sort of open up this area around here, which means that sort of being able to walk around, being able to get into the companionway once it's moved, that'll be a lot easier. And then it will be easier to avoid crash jibes. You know, not that we avoid crash jibes entirely, but we certainly avoid the negative consequences of crash jibing. Having an A-frame system that runs sort of more or less from there down to the side of the coach roof, and then another attachment point down to the middle, same as this one. So there are plenty of videos on YouTube about how this works, and I'm certainly a big believer in it. Yeah, so those are the major changes. So in terms of expense, the rigging for sure is one. And then the engine, the electrics, I'm expecting those to cost a fair amount as well. And then this companionway hatch, it's certainly not something that is going to, you know, improve the sort of immediate safety of the boat if we don't do it. But certainly it'll make the boat a little bit more ergonomic. So there are some of the batteries already that I mentioned, and this, like I said, this Bimini is going to come off. So all of this stuff will be offered up for sale or for raffle. Certainly we're going to be raffling off that dinghy. That's a Mercury 290, I think. So we're certainly going to raffle that off. Hopefully some lucky bidder will snatch that up. And yeah, that's really it. Those are the sort of major changes that we want to make. But by and large, I was fairly happy with her. The windows at the back here, the hatch at the back here, well, I don't know if we really tested them, but they didn't leak. That forward hatch, that one didn't leak necessarily. Yes, what did leak quite significantly were these sliding windows. I'm not sure who in their right mind thought that a major blue water boat should have sliding windows like this, but we certainly took a lot of drips on the head while we were trying to sleep on passage when we were taking spray over the top. The issue is that water collects in this little channel here and then just sort of runs into the boat. So I have to make a plan with that. I do have the window covers for this, and I might make some new ones, polycarbonate ones, for better visibility when on passage. But that will hopefully be able to eliminate some of the issues with the drips. You know, if I profile them to follow this curvature here, we could actually probably eliminate a lot of the drips in there. But I think probably the best thing to do is just come up with a permanent solution for that. But yeah, overall she's pretty good. I think there's some few ergonomic tweaks that need to be done to the boat, but overall pretty happy. Yeah, so sorry, this camera doesn't allow me to sort of change to looking at myself, so I'll go down below and see if I can rig something up a little bit different. Alright, so hopefully perched like that you guys can see me. So the idea I think I've mentioned before with this boat is that it'll be a boat for community use, not necessarily general public community use. I think there's things that we definitely need to be crystal clear on with regards to how the boat will be used for its intended purposes. Yeah, so being a sort of a sort of community focused boat where we can hopefully make a real difference to people's lives. The idea is that you know, I'd like as much of your guys' support as possible in order to sort of make these changes and make this boat safer, easier to use, more reliable, etc. for the people that are coming on board. So we're going to be starting some raffles. So I've got a few things that I own that I'm going to be raffling off. People have donated a few other things as well that we're going to be raffling off, so hopefully raising money that way. I'm not all that sort of inclined to just sort of do Kickstarter campaigns. I'm not entirely against it, but at this point I'm not considering anything like that. But I'll be posting a link down below for the raffle that I already set up for a pretty rare little boat. It's called a Buckler Islander. It's a 17-foot day sailor with beaching legs and a flat keel. So it's a really good boat for being able to sort of dry out, have picnics, but also fairly competent little sailor. It's a small boat, 17 foot. So it's a completely different experience from something like this. But we're raffling that off. There'll be a link in the description below to that, and then if I post this on Facebook, then there'll be a link in the description on the Facebook post as well, so you guys can follow that. There's tickets of £2 each. There's 1,000 available. And if we can sell them all, that'd be great, because that would certainly pay for the service and some of the electrics, etc. for the boat. I think we're going to need to raise quite a bit more for the rigging, and then obviously the companionway hatch. That's a completely different story. I haven't even costed that up yet. But yeah, that's it. Get involved. Tell us what you think, and hopefully we'll be able to go out sailing together. Anybody who would like to come out sailing, get in touch. I'm always keen to take people out, and the more the merrier. The boat is certified for 8 people, so it's certainly an 8-berth boat, and so it is big enough. And so last weekend we had 8 overnight passage. That worked quite well because we had a really good watch system. But yeah, come sailing with us. All right, take care. Bye.